Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping in the time machine and going back to 1986. We're going to dissect a single Warren Buffett shareholder letter. Now, you might be thinking, what can a document from the 80s teach us in a market run by algorithms? Well, as it turns out, a whole lot. We're looking for the timeless principles that give professional investors a real edge, even today.
So let's start with the results, shall we? Take a look at this number, 23.3%. That's not for one good year. That was the compounded annual growth in book value per share for Berkshire Hathaway for 22 years straight, from 65 to 86. I mean, that is just an absolutely staggering number. It's the kind of return that turns a small stake into a massive fortune.
So the obvious question is, how on earth did he do it? You'd think there's some incredibly complex, secret strategy behind this kind of performance, right? Well, the answer is almost shockingly simple. Buffett's entire philosophy, the secret sauce to these returns, really boils down to just two core responsibilities.
So let's dive into this foundation. In the letter, Buffett lays it out plain as day. He says that he and his partner, Charlie Munger, really only have two jobs at Berkshire. That's it. Everything they do, every single decision they make, it all flows from this simple idea.
And there it is. That's the whole game. First, find amazing people to run your businesses. I'm talking about people who think like owners. Second, take all the cash those businesses are generating and be really, really smart about where you put it. Get the people right, then get the capital right. Simple to say, but genius in practice.
Now, let's dig into that first job, the people part, because Buffett's approach here was so different. For him, managing people wasn't about endless meetings or breathing down their necks. No, it was about finding absolute superstars and then getting the heck out of their way.
He just fundamentally believed that true A players, the kind of managers who act like it's their own company, don't need or want to be meddled with. They thrive on freedom and they crave responsibility. You know, his job wasn't to teach Arnold Palmer how to swing a golf club. It was just to hire Arnold Palmer in the first place.
Buffett really lived by this philosophy from the ad man David Ogilvy. He argued that if you only work with people you genuinely like, trust, and admire, you don't just get better results, you also have an extraordinarily good time doing it. For Buffett, life is just too short to work with people who make your stomach churn.
Okay, so you've got these incredible managers in place, running the businesses beautifully, and they're just printing cash. This leads us straight to job number 2, capital allocation. And this is where things get really critical. How did he decide where to put all that money?
Well, the amazing thing is, he didn't keep it a secret. He just laid out his entire blueprint for everyone to see. In the 1986 letter, he literally published his acquisition criteria. Think of it as a help wanted ad for great businesses. It was a masterclass in transparency and a framework that's just as powerful for us today.
And this list is just a clinic in discipline. Notice the focus on consistent earning power. He's not interested in risky turnarounds. He'll let someone else play that game. He wants simple businesses he can actually understand. And crucially, he won't even start a conversation until a price is on the table. This simple filter just eliminates almost all of the noise, letting him focus only on high-quality, fairly priced companies.
So, let's say you find a business that checks all these boxes. Now comes the multi-million-dollar question. How do you value it? Well, this is where Buffett really went against the grain. He argued that standard accounting rules, GAAP, can often hide what's really going on inside a business.
And to prove his point, he didn't just tell us, he showed us. In the appendix of the letter, he lays out this fantastic little puzzle. He takes the exact same company, Scott Fetzer, and presents its financials in two different ways, right before and right after Berkshire bought them. Okay, look at this. The company is identical. Revenues are exactly the same. But look at the net income. It's almost 30% lower in the new version. So what gives? Well, the difference is all from non-cash accounting charges like Goodwill that were required after the acquisition. The actual cash the business generated didn't change at all, but the reported profit took a nosedive. This just perfectly shows how GAAP can distort reality. So to get to the real truth, Buffett created his own metric, owner earnings. Here's how it works. You start with reported earnings, add back those non-cash charges like depreciation, and then, and this is the absolute key, you subtract the average amount of cash you need to spend each year just to maintain the business, your maintenance capex. This is so much smarter than something like EBITDA because it forces you to face the real cash cost of just staying in business.
Now, Buffett himself was the first to say that this isn't some precise science, estimating that maintenance capex figure. It's more of an art. But he used this great quote from Keynes to make his point. It's better to be vaguely right than precisely wrong. And that's the whole idea here. Owner earnings might be a bit fuzzy, but it gets you a heck of a lot closer to a business's true value than a GAAP number that's perfectly calculated and perfectly misleading.
So you've got this brilliant intellectual framework for finding good businesses and valuing them correctly. But honestly, it's all useless if you don't have the right psychological temperament. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important principle. Remember, he's writing this in 1986, just before the big market crash of '87.
And this is where he delivers one of the most famous lines in the history of investing. His point was that market manias and panics aren't things you should try to predict. Instead, you should see them as incredible opportunities. When everyone else is euphoric and greedy, that's when you should be fearful. And when everyone else is terrified, well, that's your moment to get greedy. He drew this incredibly sharp contrast between the Berkshire mindset and what he called the modern manager. He saw these institutions constantly trading, restructuring, treating businesses like they were just pieces in a portfolio. But Berkshire's approach, it was a till death do us part commitment. When they bought a great company, they were in it for the long haul.
This critique he made back in 1986. I mean, it feels like it could have been written this morning. He's pointing out that the very institutions that are supposed to be investors are behaving more and more like short-term speculators. In today's world of high-frequency trading and quarterly performance reviews, that observation has never been more true. And that really leaves us with the key question for today, for all of us. With all the data, all the tools, all the information flooding us 24/7, is it possible that the most powerful action we can take is knowing when not to act? Perhaps the ultimate competitive advantage in today's market isn't a faster algorithm, but the simple, profound discipline to just sit still.